All right, how you doing, everybody? This will be a quick one here. Part Warnings and Revelations, Part 45. Just go over some current events and some things maybe some people don't know. With respect to current events right now, politically here in the U.S. is heating up, and even more division along political and racial lines, and a lot of rhetoric going back and forth with respect to the immigration policies and things like that. And you gotta say, the Border Patrol and immigration services and things like that are just overwhelmed, and I don't think it's right that the Democrats are comparing them to Nazis and things like that. And there probably are bad conditions and some bad situations that are happening in some of these detention places. Anytime you get that many people, whether from a situation like this where there's just a lot of people trying to cross the border, or if it's from natural disaster or something like that, you can look at the hurricanes. There's always going to be failures when you're trying to deal with a lot of people and provide for them, and there's going to be situations that just are not perfect. I'm sure that there's a lot of men and women in the Border Patrol and the other agencies that are trying to handle this, that are doing absolutely the best they can with what they have to handle the situation. And then they showed some of the conditions, people sleeping, say they're sleeping on the floor and stuff like that, and, but then you had this outfit say they're not going to provide mattresses and stuff like that because they're against Trump and stuff. So it's like, well, who do you blame there then? You also have the Democrats drag their feet and not sign legislation to provide aid until recently. They signed a thing. So today they had some kind of resolution to condemn Trump's lashing out at them, I guess specifically for they're calling them the squad or whatever, for women. But something has to be done, and this all ties in with them not wanting borders and then providing like this universal health care and everything, into the enslavement of mankind. They know these people will depend on them. They know these people will take jobs and work as cheap labor in this country. When they say they're all for them and trying to help them, it's all a bunch of hogwash. And they talk about squalor conditions and stuff. I wonder how many of them travel through these states and go see these rundown, dilapidated trailer parks in the agricultural places where a lot of these quote unquote immigrants will end up living and working, by dairies and vineyards and things like this, and look at the conditions of what they're provided by these people who are going to employ them, or even in the cities, go to the neighborhoods, and look at the conditions of the buildings they'll be living in, or even especially to get public housing and things like that. These Democrats talk about they're going to have this socialist utopia and all this and everything. Well, go to them any public housing units and areas in the big cities, and ask them people if they're living the life, if they're enjoying everything, what the government's providing, and see if it sounds like a utopia to you. The Border Patrol and the other agencies are handling this didn't ask for this situation. Just like a lot of these police officers who end up in these shootings and stuff, they didn't ask for that situation. They got called to a situation. They go to work each day. They're tasked with certain things that they're supposed to look out for. Certain areas, there might be drug dealing or something going on, or where they have had a lot of complaints and things and such, and they're tasked, they're going to make their patrols in those areas and everything like that. And if they come across something, they handle it. But lots of times, they're just doing those things, and then they get a call that they have to respond to. They didn't ask to be there. Something was going on. They have to go. They get a call. They got to go, and then they're put in these situations. No one seems to take that into effect. That what led to the whole situation. So you gotta cut the Border Patrol and these agencies some slack. They didn't ask for this situation, and to blame it on Trump, he didn't put the laws and stuff that exist, and the procedures and stuff and everything into effect. They're already there. And trying to fix them is the right thing to do, because you can't just have a million people a year walking across the border just as they please and going where they please and stuff, and having the impact that they'll have on the working people of this country. All the money for these programs comes from somewhere. We're printing a lot of it and going further into debt, but then that debt, because we give that money to the Federal Reserve and then borrow it back, that debt has to be paid, and that goes on to the taxpayer. And at the same time, the wages are going down. It's a vicious downward spiral. Wages are suppressed. You got all these people working for less wages and stuff, and that's why these Democrats want this universal health care and everything. It's like a lot of these corporations and these agricultural areas and stuff like this. These people need these services and stuff like this, and they're not making enough wages, and they're not getting any benefits. So these corporations, a lot of them are well known too. It's not just the agricultural. A lot of retail and stuff like this have even give their employees who were born here the information on how to apply for state benefits and federal benefits and stuff like this, so that they don't have to provide for them. They can pay the cheap wage, and they all reap huge profits by having the taxpayers pay for all these social services, and and then the workers, the natural born citizens of this country and stuff, also suffer under that. A lot of people argue, well, they're going to go do the jobs that nobody else wants to do, and this and that and everything. In a lot of cases, you might be right, but they're not just out in the fields anymore. They're in factories and stuff, and a lot of the jobs did go south of the border. You go through any small towns, a lot of these politicians never leave this little social area. They want to make national decisions, but they've never been anywhere in the country except when on the campaign trail to a rally and stuff. They don't take it all in and see what once used to be a factory that supported half a town in rural America, making whatever, doorknobs, whatever. It might not have been the greatest job, but it was a job there. And a lot of Americans are looking, youth in this country are looking to go into tech and other things and stuff. They don't want to work a factory job or drive a truck or do whatever, for their careers, and you can't blame them for that. This is the land of opportunity. If you want to follow those types of careers, that's your prerogative in this country. But so all this and everything, you look at this and how it relates to the end times and stuff like this. They're pushing this worldwide. It's not just here. And if you go on YouTube, you can go on YouTube or Google several websites. Some of them you're going to say, oh, look, he's promoting anti-Semitism and this and that. I have nothing against anyone who's Jewish. I have things against the policies of the state of Israel. Their 70-year genocide of the Palestinian people. And that's what it is. It's a slow genocide. And recently here I've seen on several conservative programs more and more evangelicals preaching how Israel has the right to take even more land and this and that goes along with the plan for Greater Israel. It's called the Yinon Plan. And it goes along with their interpretation of the scripture that the land between the Nile and the Euphrates belongs to the Jews. And so some of the sites you can go to are Brother Nathaniel. You can go to David Duke. I haven't looked at his website in a long time, so if he's gone off a cliff or whatever and is totally neo-Nazi or something like that right now, don't try and say I support that, because I don't support anything like that. But he did have quite a bit of information on the policies of Israel and things going on over there in the Middle East that you will not get from even the liberal media outlets in this country. You will not get from the conservative ones for sure. There's other websites and people who also report on things going on over there that it's like a blackout. You're not going to get information about things going on over there through media outlets in this country. The powers that be own all the dogs in the fight. So a lot of people will just say, oh, you hate the Jews or this and that. No, that ain't true. Just because you point out something that's wrong and it's unknown to a lot of people doesn't mean you hate a certain race or anything like that. And that's the narrative that they push, so that no one will speak out. because they'll be tagged as this or that or whatever. So, but you still have to try and point people to more information, to make them more aware of the dog and pony show that's going on. So how this ties in with end times is, if you go on those sites, or you can even go on YouTube and put in rabbis about when their Messiah comes, and things like this, because they're still waiting for their Messiah. They don't accept Jesus, peace be upon him, as the Messiah. And they say, oh, we killed him, so how can he be the Messiah? So that's how it ties in, is because they say when their Messiah comes, all humanity, non-Jews, which if you go by their Talmud, all other races were created to serve them, were nothing but animals. And so when their Messiah comes, the whole world will bow to Israel and serve Israel. And they say those who do are going to be happy to do it. So you're going to be happy to do it because you're going to get your free medical, and or so-called free medical, and all this everything else, all these social services and stuff. You're just you're never going to be able to work your way up to having any kind of property or actual wealth or anything like that, because they're going to be the ones who reap all the benefits of everyone's hard labor, especially the quote-unquote minorities that they'll have, who will do the agricultural stuff, field work, things like that. They're going to be happy to be working under that system, because they're going to have all this free stuff, quote unquote. So that's how that ties into that. This system that they're trying to push now. A lot of the Democrats, I'm sure, think they're doing humane things and all. They're not doing anything but enslaving people, whether they realize it or not. They think they're helping all these people, bringing them in. Most of these people will never really have any kind of advantages over being here as to staying where they came from. They will be in bad situations where they're taken advantage of by others who came before them, and who will whether it's gangs and things like that, and crime and stuff. They'll just they'll end up in a city or someplace where they will still have to deal with those kinds of things. And then they're also going to be taken advantage of by working these jobs with cheap or low wages and just no future. So and you don't see anybody talking about the corporate interest in this. The Democrats like to try and say that they're not part of all that, but they are. They have big-time corporate backers, just like the Republicans do, and they want cheap labor. Wall Street loves cheap labor, and the corporations, they get richer, more profits. You know, a company shows, that's better for Wall Street and all the investors who get away with making all these trades and stuff with actually not using any of their own money. And then say they're too big to fail when they make all these bad decisions. Wall Street could care less. The major players on Wall Street could care less if every middle-class person in this country was put out of a job and on the welfare lines, and all the jobs left the country, you know, all the work anyway left the country and was somewhere else, because all they deal with is money. They don't, that's it, strictly money. They look at the books. That's it. All the other stuff, they could care less. They would leave the United States and go live, if it got so bad here, they would leave the United States and go live somewhere else and still reap the rewards of all the investment in American corporations who had all their labor overseas or south of the border, making tons of money off of cheap labor. So, you know, the media outlets, Wall Street, Hollywood, you know, the political parties, you know, they're all influenced and run by the same people. They have both dogs in the fight, and they will use everything they can to manipulate the population into doing what they want. And a lot of these rabbis and a lot of the leaders of Israel who've been on American TV, which you don't see anybody bringing up or pointing out, who said Israel will survive even if it means the destruction of the United States. You'll see these pastors like John Hagee and stuff go on these programs and toe the Israeli line, and he's willing to bow down and kiss their feet. But he claims to love this country and everything like that, and how great our relationship is with them. But you know, you'll never see him or anyone like him play, you know, clips of these Israeli Knesset members and stuff who've been on American TV and said Israel will survive even if it means the destruction of the United States. We're theirs to play with, in other words. If that's what it takes, they don't care. Yet people like John Hagee will say they're our friends and are great allies and this and that. Really? They're willing to destroy this country if it'll benefit them. Netanyahu pledged when he first came into political power to the rabbis, the Orthodox, that every day he would do something to rush the appearance of the Messiah. And you can look, I'm not making any of this up. You can go look it up. It's there. So if you want to say I'm anti-Semitic for pointing out things that are actually true and you can check on, I don't know what to tell you. Because if you don't want to check on it and see that it's there, then, you know, there's nothing I can do, you know. You know, people just make their accusations, but I can back up what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything hateful or untrue about Jews. I'm not making any stereotypes. I'm telling you, this is the doctrine of a lot of them, what they believe and what they have said and what they are doing. You know, and things like John Hagee, you'll never see him or any of these evangelicals tell you about the Talmud, that a lot of these Jews follow. And I say a lot of Jews, I mean, you know, like a lot of the movers and the shakers that are in government and in Wall Street and in, you know, running the news media and all these other things, this Talmud that they follow. And how the awful things that they say about Jesus, peace be upon him, and the Blessed Virgin Mary in that Talmud. And how on Israel, you can go on David Duke's site and Brother Nathaniel's sites and look, just Google how the Jews mock Jesus, or YouTube search how the Jews mock Jesus, and or on Brother Nathaniel or David Duke's channels, if they still have channels. I haven't been on their channels in a while. They might be with all this, YouTube and other sites shutting people down. They might have taken them off. But they had videos there from Israeli television shows, and but you're never, like I said, it's like a blackout. You're not going to see these things in the general media here, or anybody report on them or anything like that, because they don't want you to know. You have to look for yourself, try and find people who have gone there and who've investigated and who have, you know, brought these things to light. You can also see with Trump now, and these conservatives, you know, to me, a lot of opinion of Trump, you know, that I have, you know, it's like, well, it's still remains to be seen, you know, because all the politicians in this country go to Israel, especially the runner for president. Even Obama went to Israel, get their support. Like I say, they own both dogs in the fight. So you see Trump bringing up that these Democrats are anti-Semitic and this, and they don't have no support for Israel and all this. So maybe he's doing these things because he's looking for more political backing, showing them, hey, look, I'm still your champion here. You know, I'm the, you know, and I think a lot has to do with that, with him, you know, moving the embassy to Jerusalem and then the Golan Heights thing. Probably to appease them, to keep their political backing here, because he knows, you know, they run the media and stuff like that, and you're not going to be president or have a successful presidency unless you have the right people backing you, you know. And they can probably push or pull pressure from the Democrats, and you know, that's the advantage of them owning both dogs in the fight. All right, if you're president and they backed you and you're not going to do it right, okay, let's turn them dogs loose on the other side and cause you political problems here in America if you're not going to do what we want you to do overseas, you know. And so his reluctancy to attack Iran, and his reluctancy to continue on in Syria and things like this, that could have got their ire against him, and so they, you know, back all these lunatics on the Democratic side, and say, okay, we're going to cause so much trouble. You're not going to get anything done in the United States because we're going to back all these people who are against you, and until you get back in line. So if you don't think things like that happen here, then you got your head in the sand or something, and just don't understand how outside influences have infiltrated our nation, our political apparatus in our nation. They just put so much money and stuff behind people in Congress and things like that, that if those people want to keep their political careers, they have to jump, when they say how, jump. So, and it's a shame, because even the president, the Russia's trying to interfere and all this, and what Russia did or whatever, I have no idea, but I can tell you plainly, and the information's out there, no one will bring it up, that AIPAC and these other groups interfere in our political process every single day. So, but no one gets upset about that. John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy were prosecuting them for taking the foreign aid that we sent to Israel, shipping it back here through these political action groups, and lining the pockets of people in Congress, and that's against the law. And so they were prosecuting them, and as soon as Bobby Kennedy was killed, Lyndon Johnson dropped the whole thing, let them go on doing what they were doing. So so you can look into those tie-ins too. Book of Enoch, I know I've spoken a lot about what it has to do with flat earth and everything, but there's also in the Book of Enoch, in the last chapters, more lengthy things dealing with a people who, because of their might and their wealth, and because their proclamation of being, the people of God, deceive a lot of people into thinking they are the people of God. And you can see the things Enoch has to say about them. Now, I'm sure down through history, the descriptions of these people and everything can fit any certain number of groups. Right now, you could use it to look at America. You could definitely use it to look at Israel. But I'm sure in the past you could have looked at it to been the British, or it might be referring to not just a nation like that. Maybe it's referring to Christianity as a whole, or Judaism as a whole, or there's some in the Islamic circles who would say, well, that could fit the Saudis. There's a lot of people who have a lot against the Saudi kingdom, saying they're corrupt. Even bin Laden was supposedly saying, it was corrupt because how they deal with the West. So I'll say Allah only knows at this point. I think clearly who it could be referring to. It might be referring to people who come along 100 years or 1,000 years after us, however long the earth goes along, Allah knows best. So, but that's another thing in the Book of Enoch some people should pay attention to. I know I dwelt a lot on the flat earth tie-ins with the descriptions of the sun and the moon and stuff, and this being the anniversary of the supposed Apollo missions. You might all want to read that Book of Enoch and check out the descriptions of the solar system and the sun and the moon that are in it. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of arguments and debates with this being the 50th anniversary as to whether we went or not. And you can get some pretty good information out of the Book of Enoch, maybe to make up your mind one way or the other. So that'll about do it on this one. It was kind of just a spur of the moment thing here. Just it occurred to me these pushes for open borders and all this and everything, how it's going to tie into this global system. So, all right, remember, Islam is about prayer and being thankful to God, and about being an honest person and doing the best you can, and fighting against evil. And even if that is just speaking out against it, or even just condemning it in your heart, things that are out of your control, that you have no control over. There's nothing you can do to change it except for speak out about it, and even in some cases, all that you can do is condemn it in your heart. So remember that, and it's about prayer and fasting and being thankful to God. And remember, there's no greater thing you can say than Allah Akbar, and that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. May peace be upon him and his family and followers. All right, take care out there. Be safe.